Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your class 12th poetry, an elementary school classroom in a slum. This poem we have taken up from the book Flamingo, second poem of your syllabus, written by Stephen Spender. Let's see what the poet Stephen Spender used to convey the message to us through his piece of work, as well as let's try to understand or try to learn something about him. He was born in the year 1909 and died in 1995. He was an English poet, novelist, and essayist. He always used to write on the themes of social injustice and the class struggle. This time too, in his poem of Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, he had written on this particular theme only. He even got the various awards and he was appointed as a poet laureate consultant in poetry in the U.S. Library of Congress in 1965. Let's see what this poem says about. This poem touches upon the themes of social injustice and class inequality. It questions the value of education in a slum. It highlights the role of the educators and the more privileged class in society to liberate the children and infuse them with human creativity. Through this poem, he's basically telling us that how in this society there's a problem of social injustice as well as the class inequality. And even he emphasized that the slum children, specifically those who are living in those poor areas, they are not getting the education as they should be having, as they are having a right to education. But unfortunately, the poet raised the question on the value of education because these children were deprived of that. And even he highlights the role of the educators, the influential people, the powerful people, or the privileged ones, that they can come together and they can do something for the slum children. Let's try to understand this poem stanza wise. There are four stanzas. The first stanza, as I'm reading it here, and then there will be the explanation for it. Far, far from gusty waves, these children faces like ruthless weeds. The hair torn round their pallor. The tall girl with a way down head, the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes. The stunted, unlucky hair of twisted bones, reciting a father's granal disease. His lesson from his desk. At back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrels game in tree room other than this. Let's see in the first stanza, line by line, what Stephen Spender is telling to us. The first few lines are far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like ruthless sweets, the hair torn round their pallor. Now, when you look at this picture, you would even realize the eyes of this boy is saying a lot of things. It seems that it's conveying some meaning to us. Basically, these lines says about, first of all, you need to understand too that the first two words itself is a poetic device here, that is the repetition, far, far. Now, these gusty waves seems that the very strong, huge waves were there. And when those strong, huge waves came, the faces of these children looked like that they were the rootless weeds. Means like they are the unwanted ones in the society. Their lives are totally far away. They are not having that energy as the strong waves are very high in nature. But the lives of these slum children were totally different. They were very far away. And these children seem to like the rootless weeds, basically the unwanted ones of the society. Nobody wants these slum children. Even their hair are so untidy. Even the hair are coming on their faces because these children are deprived of various things. Then the another few lines says, the tall girl with a weighed down head, the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky hair of twisted bones, reciting a father's cranal disease, his lesson from his desk. Now, Stephen Spender mentions about the few children of this class. Now, you need to understand this elementary school classroom in a slum. This poem is basically about the children who were living in a slum. Elementary school means up to class 8. So, here in the first stanza, Stephen Spender mentions about the conditions of these slum children, those who were sitting in that particular classroom. So, there was a tall girl, her head was down. Now, why her head was down? Because of the two possibilities. First, she was malnourished due to her poor condition. She was undernourished. Secondly, she was so burdened by her responsibilities in her life at such a young age that her head was down. Then there was a boy in that class, paper seeming boy. Now, paper seeming means he was as thin as paper, once again, due to the malnourishment. And he had his rat's eyes. Now, rat's eyes, Stephen Spender wants to say that his eyes seems that it was full of hunger. So he had compared his eyes with the rat's eyes here, that it was full of hunger. His eyes were coming out. Then there was another child who was sitting in that classroom, the stunted, unlucky one. Unlucky here. Now, here means the successor, the next generation of any family. And he was the unlucky child. He had the stunted bones. He had the bones which were not developed properly. The child was standing and he was reciting a lesson. He was reading a lesson, but unfortunately, while looking at that child, it seems that he had this disease taken by his father only. That's why unlucky here. Reciting a father's renal disease. So means even his father or the forefathers, even they had the twisted bones. Even they had the underdeveloped bones because of the poverty, because of the malnourishment only. Then the next few lines says about the first stanza. At back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. Now you say it, the poet basically mentions here that in that particular classroom, at the back of that class, the dim class. Why dim class? Because it was having the pale or the colorless walls because of the slum school. It was not properly maintained. There was one child who was sitting at the back, unnoticed by anyone. A very sweet and young boy. His eyes live in a dream. His eyes live in a dream basically means he was imagining. It seems while looking at his eyes that he is imagining something. Of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. So that child, what he was doing, he was looking out from the window and he was noticing that how one squirrel on his tree basically, there was a hole, the tree room. That squirrel was going inside and coming out, in out. The squirrel was enjoying it. So in the same manner, that boy, he also wanted to enjoy his life with no foundations, with no restrictions. He also wanted to have that freedom in his life. That's why his eyes were living in a dream. So the first stanza says about this only. I'm repeating it here. And don't worry, we will even discuss the poetic devices at the end too. The poet has used repetition far, far to lay stress on the distance that is very far away from the normal life. Yes, the lives are totally far away from those energetic things. The weeds are the unwanted plants and grow anywhere. And these slum children are always treated like they are the unwanted ones in the society. Even their hairs was scattered around their face because they were untidy, because they were shabbily ugly. Even children suffer the double tragedy because first they were the unwanted ones, they lacked support as well as they were hopeless. Then there was a tall girl whose head was down due to the responsibilities as well as due to her condition. Then there was a paper seeming boy in this stanza who was very thin and suffering from the malnutrition, and he was searching for food. It shows by the rat's eyes only. Then there was a child, the stunted boy, who was very short, who was the unlucky here because he had the twisted bones, or we can say that he was suffering from the problem called rickets by his birth. And why unlucky? Because even his father was suffering from the same, and it was passed on to him. And there was a boy who was sitting at the back of the class, that dim class, because that classroom was not well lit because of the colorless walls or because there was no electricity, we can say. He was unnoticed by others, but he was dreaming. His eyes open up, escaping out into open and playing with the squirrel in tree houses, rather than being in that small room. So there is an antithesis between openness of the tree room and dim closed classroom. Basically, the opposites have been used. That first, he wanted to be in that openness area, and secondly, he was closed into that dim classroom. Now, let's see stanza 2, or before I would say, let's discuss the important words of the stanza 1. So, we have gusty waves, rootless weeds, pallor, stunted, paper seeming, crenelled, and here. Now, stanza 2. On sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome, riding all cities. Belt, flowery, trellis belly, open-handed map, awarding the world its world, and yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their futures painted with a fog. A narrow street, sealed in with a lit sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of world. So first few lines and the pictures are also there for you. So there was a sour cream walls, like the yellowish, colorless walls were there. Now second stanza depicts about the condition of that classroom. So the walls were very pale, yellowish in color, and they were the donations hanging on the wall. So you all know about it in the classroom. We always used to hang the useful things. But the things which were hung there, first of all, those all were donated by the rich people, and they were meaningless in the lives of those slum children. There was the Shakespeare head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome, that is the high classes cities, riding all cities actually. Then there were bells, flowery, trellis valley, everything which were there hanging on the wall. They were meaningless for those children because they were having no idea, no clue about the Shakespeare, that who was he. Shakespeare was the father of English literature, and he is still. But people were unaware of this. Those slum children were unaware of this fact. They don't know about the bells, they don't know about the flowers, they don't know about this valley. Their lives were totally far away from these things. So, what's the use of hanging it on the wall? Even there was an open handed map awarding the world its world. Even there was a map which was hanging on the wall, open handed, which can we say that prepared by the rich people only, or it was like the drawn by the hands only here. Now, awarding the world its world basically means that there are two kinds of world, two distinct worlds. One world is for the rich and prosperous people, which was hanging on the wall, that world map. And the other world is those children, those who were sitting there. And yet, for these children, these windows, not this map, their world. So there are two distinct worlds. One rich, happy, and prosperous one, and the second one is the poor one, the slum children. So basically, even that map is fertile for those slum children. Even that map is not having any meaning in the lives of those slum children. Why? Because map shows the happy world. Map shows the opportunities, but unfortunately for these children, they were totally far away from those things. Then it says, where all their futures painted with a fog, a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars upwards. Then Stephen Spender mentioned that the lives of these slum children were fainted with a fog, means their lives are totally unclear one. Their lives were totally the things which we can't see. It's painted with that. And the lives of these children, it seems that these are the narrow street ones. Why? Because they doesn't know what is going on. They doesn't know how to come out from that situation. And the lives of those slum children are covered up with the lead sky, that is the dullness. Already they are having a narrow street, and that too covered with that lead sky, that is the dullness. Because they doesn't know how to come out. And obviously, again, their lives are totally far away from rivers, capes, and stars or words. They know about these rivers, they might know about the valleys, they might know about everything, but are very far away from these natural things. They are very far away from the stars or words, that is the knowledge. So the explanation says here, these sour cream walls indicate that the walls were not even painted properly or the colorless. There are certain paintings donated by the others which were hanging on the walls, like Shakespeare's head, cloudless dawn, civilized dome, then Charlie's belly, which is full of flowers. It shows beauty of nature, but unfortunately, their lives were not like that. Then there was an open-handed map, which signifies the sharing of knowledge. Paintings, map, all are in contrast to the world in which these children are living. Even these flowers, valley, they aren't the real truth for these children because they are living in the totally different world. Because they can't find these beautiful sceneries. They just only see the polluted and stingy narrow lanes. Even the life of the slum and the people is far more uncivilized. So what's the use of hanging the civilized dome guiding all cities? These open-handed maps suggest maps drawn by the powerful, influential people. Awarding the world its world means that the world is leading by the powerful leaders. And the lives of these slum children is full of poverty and misery, which is in totally contrast with a world full of prosperity and progress. These windows reflect the world exposed on the maps and windows of the classroom that are dark and dim. So yes, their lives are totally different. Their futures are unclear. They are doomed by narrow streets. They are having no rivers or lakes in their lives. So important words are here. Soar, civilized, stars or words. Third stanza we are having. Or before that, the poetic devices of first two stanzas. See, far, far is a repetition, gusty waves metaphor, like ruthless weed simile, weighed down imagery, paper seeming by metaphor, rat size metaphor, reciting pun, squirrel's game symbol, sour cream pun, open-handed map symbol, futures painted with a fog metaphor, lead sky pun, sailing with a lead sky metaphor, and stars are words metaphor. There's one another video where we have discussed number of poetic devices, so you can even see that also. Now, stanza 3 says about surely Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes. From fog to endless night, on this slag heap these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel, with many glass like bottle bits on stones, all of their time and space of foggy slum. So blot their maps with slums as big as. So it says, surely Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal. Now, Stephen Spender mentioned there was a Shakespeare portrait which was hanging Shakespeare's head. It was a very wicked, evil example for these slum children. The map which was hanging, it's a very bad example for those slum children because they even don't know who Shakespeare was. They even are clueless about their own place in that world map, that where they exist. And while looking at the ships and sun and love, when they hear about it, it gives them the temptation to steal because they can't afford those things, it seems to them. So it gives the feeling of stealing them because of temptation. For lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes, from fog to endless night, on their slag heap, these children. Now, Stephen Spender mentions that the lives of these children are slowly turning into the cramped holes. It is changing into the worst one. It's changing into that the whole, it was changing into, instead of getting to the better condition, it was changing into the worst. And when we are having a fog, when we wait, especially that the clarity should be there and then we can move ahead. But unfortunately, from fog to the endless night, the lives, the future of these children are like this only. Now, on their slag heap basically means they are like the garbage. They are like the piles of waste material, these slum children. Now, these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel with mended glass like bottle bits on stone. Now, these children, whatever clothes they are wearing, their bones are easily visible because they are so thin because of the malnourishment. Their bones are easily visible, their clothes are in torn condition, so skins are easily visible. Even the spectacles which they are wearing, it's made of steel, and that too in a broken condition with the mended glass. With the scratches on that, with like the bottle bits on stone, like the scratches are there. Why we wear the spectacles? To have a clear the vision, to have the clarity. But unfortunately, these slum children were wearing the steel spectacles within the broken scratches conditions. Now, all of their time and space are foggy slums, so blot their maps with slum as big as doom. So the time and space of these foggy slum, the lives of these slum children were totally covered up with these space only, with this time only. They can't even think to come out easily. So blot, blot means to stop it now. We need to stop it here right now. Otherwise, their slum children will convert, their lives would become into the more destruction level, that is doom. We need to stop, slow blot their maps. We need to stop their conditions right now. Otherwise, it will change into the destruction. Doom is destruction. Now, explanation part is here. So let's see the explanation for this. These slum children are troubled by the disease and disappointments. For them, Shakespeare is a wicked and mad, a bad example. Even the literary excellence of Shakespeare, that scenic beauty, cannot relieve them from their disappointments. The world of these children is totally confined into the narrow streets. Therefore, map is a bad example. They can't even think to come out. They feel cheated, they feel deprived of these thrilling sensations of sun, ships, and emotions of love, as these symbolizes joy and happiness, which these children are deprived of. They only experience the hunger and poverty. These slum children lives are totally into the cramped holes. They are struggling for survival while sitting in that small, dirty, dingy rooms with the foggy morning till endless nights and trying to meet their survival. Even the slum children, they are like the slag heaps, like the piles of waste material full of dirt and garbage. They look like skeletons as their bones were easily visible. They wear spectacles of steel with mended glass, as those were discarded by the rich people. It was repaired, scratches, everything. Their lives is like the shattered one and broken one, like bottle bits on a stone. They are deprived of even the basic amenities of life because they can't even locate themselves in that map. It is urgently required that we need to do something. We need to give the opportunities, the means to these slum children, to these slum inhabitants, so that they can lead a dignified and civilized life. Now, these are the important words from the stanza. Wicked, tempted, slyly, cramped, slag, mended, blot, do. The last stanza stays about unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs. Break or break open till they break the town, and show the children to green fields, and make their world run azure on gold sands, and let their tongues run naked into books, the white and green leaves upon. Open history there whose language is. Now, in the last stanza, the third stanza basically said about the situation of those children here. Now, here the fourth stanza give the hope, the aspiration that unless if we really want that these lives of these some children should become the better one, these influential, powerful people should come together and they should change the men, the educational policies. This map becomes their window and this window. So the map which is there, it should be like the windows for these slum children so that they can see outside, they can see the opportunities and that shut upon their lives like catacombs. Now, catacombs are like graveyards. So means their lives which are like in the graveyard, they can shut that life and they can come out from that situations when the highly influential people will come together and do something for them. Then it says, break or break open till they break the town, and show the children to green fields and make their world run azure on gold and sand, gold and let their tongues. Now Stephen Spender focuses this. He said that everyone needs to come together and we need to break their chains, we need to break their shackles so that they can come out from that situation. They can come out from that situation and let these children should be allowed to go outside, sit in the lap of nature on the green fields and make their wandering azure on gold sand and let them learn whatever they want to learn. Let them have that wisdom. Let them have that knowledge. Let them give them that freedom to come out from that situation and let their tongues run naked into books, the white and green leaves open. And let these slum children should be allowed to read the things full of wisdom. Let them do whatever they want to do. Let them have that courage and freedom. History there whose language is the sun. And let them create a new history. Let them give the opportunities to do something in their lives. So here the explanation says, the poet reveals the appalling truth that there can be no change for the better unless high powerful people would come together. Then he says the windows of this classroom shut them. So we need to do something for the people, for these children who are in the world of poverty and helplessness. The poet appeals that those who are in power, they need to liberate these slum children from that life. He asks the people to come and break these windows, which appear to have sealed the fate of these slum children. He would like to see these children to run carefree on the golden sands, enjoy a new lease of life and freedom. He honestly desires that each and every child should be able to enjoy the fundamental right to freedom and education. They should be have access to all kinds of books. They should be able to learn from nature. And the poet ends on a positive note. He expresses his belief that people who are ignited by the spirit of knowledge and learning are the ones who create history. So let them create the history. It's a moral liability of everyone to break barriers between the haves and have-nots and give the meaningful education. For history remembers only those people who are educated and have enlightened themselves for a better. So important words, catacombs, cemetery. So the poetic devices are here once again with you. From fog to endless night, wears can peep through by bones, like bottle bits on stones, sour cream, let sky, ships and sun, slag heaps, windows, let their turns, whose language, windows are shut upon their lives, green fields, white and green leaves, run is your sun, break or break. So these are the poetic devices you need to see. And as I mentioned, we are having another video on the poetic devices too. So thank